Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to review this super budget 280mm AIO cooler by ID Cooling. This is the Frostflow plus 280mm version with white LEDs and C-shaped white LED on the pump. I have actually installed this onto my PC, but let's just go through a short introduction to this cooler. So what I want to show you is the CPU socket compatibility. As you can see here, you can support LGA 775 up until 2011. The most importantly, it can also support LGA 1151, which is the socket currently used by Intel 7, 8 and 9 Gen. On the other side, the AMD, you can see it supports AM2 up to AM4. So this one can support Ryzen's series processors without any problem. Next, we can go to the specification. As you can see here, this radiator is 27mm thick, so take note on that. And the pump speed is 2300 RPM. But take note, this pump speed is fixed. You cannot adjust it because it's setup powered. The bearing is also ceramic bearing. The pump is actually a bit noisy since it's always running at full speed. I'll show you later on. And the fan speed starts 800 up to 1600, and it's actually very noisy if it's running at max speed. And when it's running at 800, you can actually hear it, but it's not that unbearable. So the bearing is hydraulic bearing, and this cooler comes with 2 years warranty. So before I begin, I just want to say that this cooler, I got this cooler for like 40 USD, which is, I think this is actually the cheapest 208mm AIO cooler that you can get from the market. It's actually quite worth the money because it's actually noisier, but performs almost the same as those much more expensive 280mm AIO, such as the Kraken X62, the Corsair H115i, and the CLC 280 by AVGA. So now let me show you how is it running in my PC. So right now it's inside my CPU now. I'm going to unscrew the panels so that you can see the inside. So as you can see here, I installed my AIO at the front of the case. This is a Vector Design Nano S case, and I could only install it in front of the case here because this is the only 280mm clearance I have in this case. So right now it's running fine inside the case now, and as you can see here, it actually have a C-shaped white LED on the pump here, and the logo, the ID Cooling logo, is actually lighted as well. But sadly, this is not an RGB LED. You cannot configure this to any other color here. But for the price, this is good because it indicates that the pump is running fine. And here is the pump. Here's the radiator here, aluminium, with a slight texture on the side here. And here is the ID Cooling logo. The fan I installed, this is the fan I installed it in the push configuration. You can actually install a pull configuration if you want to, but as you can see, the clearance is actually very little here, and it will make the fan installation pretty hard, but I think it's possible. But so far, with the performance it's running, it's actually pretty good. I ordered without overclocking my Ryzen 5 1600X. It's actually idling at minimum 23 Celsius when my room temperature is around 24 Celsius. So that's pretty good. Now the downside of this cooler is that this pump is actually running at fixed speed. As I mentioned, it's setup powered, so actually you can hear a bit of the noise here. If I come closer here, maybe you can hear a bit of water bubbling inside as well. And looking at the tube here, it's actually as long as the radiator itself, about 30 cm. It's actually quite flexible, and you can see that this is actually sleeve, which is very good for its price. And the tips are coming from the side of the pump. You can actually twist here, but I won't suggest it because it's actually pretty tight and I don't want it to spoil. This is the ID Cooling 140mm fan. Right now I believe it's running at the minimum speed, which is 800, and as you can hear, this is actually considered pretty noisy since it's only running at 800 RPM. And as you can see, actually you can see some rubber dome here. If you look closely, they actually supply 8 rubber dome here for you to put onto the fan itself to reduce the vibration noise. And as you can see here, this one I believe have come off. I'll try to fix it next time. This one has also come off, but they actually come off because I didn't install the screws here. I only installed 4 screws for the fan and the radiator to be in front of my panel, because 4 screws is actually easier to remove when I need to remove them. And taking a look from the inside here, if you can look closely, the radiator actually come damaged, but luckily this one does not have any leaking issue. So far it's running fine. The performance is not affected as well. When it comes to the installation, I would say it's very easy. It comes with all the brackets that Intel and AMD can support. I would say the screw is not enough because they actually only provide 8 long screws. So if you actually use up all of your 8 screws to secure your fan and the radiator onto your case, you don't have any extra screws to set up a push-pull configuration anymore, and you might need to search for the extra screws. So in my case, if you use only 4 screws in front here, you can use the rest of the 4 long screws to mount your push-pull configuration fans. But judging from the price, I think they are actually cost saving. On top of that, when you purchase this AIO cooler, it actually comes with a thermal paste, but I would suggest not to use the thermal paste because I don't think it is a high quality one. I would suggest it to use the Arctic MX4, which is the one I'm using right now. So my initial cooler is actually a Master Liquid Light 108 installed here, and when you compare the performance of these two AIO, in which this one has more than 2 times the surface area of my previous AIO, I would say that this one is actually quieter. The fans actually spins much lower than that of my previous AIO cooler, and it's actually quieter. And so in this case, combined with the lower idle temperature, I would say I can push my Ryzen even further with this AIO now. So I'll be doing an overclocking guide of my Ryzen 5 1600X soon, so be sure to follow my channel here. Next, I'll show you the temperature of Master Liquid Light 120mm vs the ID Cooling Frostflow plus 280mm AIO cooler when running AIDA 64, stressing the CPU for about 15 minutes. So this is the result after running for 15 minutes with the Master Liquid Light 120mm. So as you can see here, the CPU is actually sitting at around 72.1 Celsius average, and it always 70 Celsius above. The CPU is running at 3.8 GHz, and the fan is running at about 1300 RPM to 1500 RPM. So as you can see, it's actually quite high. It always maintains at 70 above. Well, let's see about the ID Cooling 280mm. This is the ID Cooling 280mm result. As you can see here, the average is only 65 Celsius, but it can spike up to 73.5 Celsius sometimes, but that's the maximum temperature. It never exceeds 70 Celsius in average. The clock speed is about the same, and the fan is actually running at 900 RPM, which is the bare minimum of the stock fans, which is very cool. So in short, this ID Cooling Frostflow plus 280mm performs very well and allows you to overclock even more performance out of your CPU. However, the downside is that the pump is always running at fixed speed and it's a bit noisy, while the fan is actually quite noisy when it's running at 1600 RPM. It is even noticeable when it's running at minimum speed, that is 800 RPM. So if you ever get the chance, do go and change the fan to a better fan. You can also watch here for the installation progress of this AIO onto my Fractal Design 90S, and you can also watch here for the unboxing experience of this cooler. So overall, I would say the price per performance of this AIO cooler is superb, and if you're on a budget that you still want to cool your CPU, I would say this one is the one you get. And if you have a case that can support 280, always go for the 280 instead of the 240 millimeters, because this one will give you a little more cooling performance. So that's it from me, guys. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. Ciao.